This video is more geared towards language of rebuking a person. Um, a lot of people think when you tell a person no, you have to tell them in a certain way because um, that's the protocol of it or whatever. What I want to make people aware of is that we are forgetting that there are a lot of people out there that is still God's children, God's people, but their language or their dialogue or the way they may say something to you is totally different from that which you was trained or accustomed to. Um, the perfect example of this is if I'm approached by a man and a man's trying to date me, and I say, no, I don't want to talk to you or whatever the case may be, and his demeanor is inappropriate or not what it's supposed to be, and I use the language, no, I don't want to talk to you, you're not the type of person that I usually deal with. um does it make me any less righteous because I say it like that instead of what we were somewhat accustomed to being trained to in a religious setting? Get thee behind me, Satan. Didn't I tell you, Satan, you ain't gonna get none of this? And, you know, we're so used to that type of approach, but to actually speak it in a different word, is it not still a rebuke? Or is it not still saying, look, this is not something that I'm into? This is more something that you are into. And sometimes because the words may be a little bit um unaccustomed to the words that we would like to perceive as a proper rejection or a proper refusal, is it not still a refusal? What's going on now is a lot of our children have learned profanity. So when they resist something that offends them and they use a disrespectful word to resist, a lot of times we look at it and we say these two are still the same thing because the word was disrespectful. It's not something that we would normally use. It's not the norm. This person just kissed this person out and told them to, or just use profanity and told this person to go on by this business. He don't want to have nothing, or she doesn't want to have nothing to do with them. Is it still not them rejecting and resisting temptation or resisting that person's advancement towards them? I remember biblically, we're looking back at Matthew's 4, and Jesus is being taken up to be tempted of to be tempted in the wilderness, and after fasting, I mean he's literally fasting 40 days and 40 nights, you know, and he's there, he's fasting, and Satan comes to him and say, make these stones bread. If you're hungry, since you can't eat from me, make the stones bread and eat the stones, you know. And Jesus is at this point, because whether you are a normal man or whether you are a religious figure, at some point a regular man will walk through this same journey and will not be able to make stone bread, but will be forced to eat stone as bread. He resisted that temptation and said, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. So this is to say, not just because of the fact that these are stones and I can make them bread. Indeed, I can. But what about the next man that will walk this journey like me, that will not be as powerful as me? You will come back again and you will say to him, can you make these stones bread? And he will say, look, I cannot make it bread. So how are you walking the same walk as Jesus Christ when you don't have the same ability? And you do. That's the reason why a lot of miracles weren't really manifested as much, because we haven't even gotten to the basics of actually working miracles and performing the tasks in which we need to perform to move forward. So at this point, Jesus is just doing what a regular man would do. When you see him working miracles and all this stuff right here, this is just something that an ordinary man can do during his journey. You know, he's saying, look, speaking to the atmosphere, and God's angels will make things happen. But at the same time, what if I'm not even at that level? I'm not on that level, but I'm still a child of God. So I speak a different language. So maybe Satan would come and say, you know, make the stones bread or eat stones, knowing that you are incapable of eating stones. So you would sit up there and you probably would not comment. Is that any different than Jesus saying, man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God? What if you don't have words for that situation because you weren't trained on that situation? So you no longer commented. You didn't say anything. What happens if were to say that and you were to say, look, get from around me. I don't want to have nothing to do with what you're saying. Even if you're verbalizing something, these are refusals, and this is you rejecting Satan and resisting Satan, regardless of what wording you use. Maybe I might use cussing words. You know, these so and so rocks ain't no doggone bread. You know, is it not still the same thing? You know, so I'm at this point where I'm looking at it, and a question now becomes with the language. Are we misjudging people because of the language that they're using? Are we misjudging because certain things being said? And yes, we are aware that biblically in Proverbs that it clearly states that we should not be using profanity and foul language. But have we missed the children of God because of some of these bad traits and characteristics that have been taken up? Because traditions and traits and the way you would normally do things and the customs of you doing things sometimes affects us even when we're changing, because we're so accustomed to doing this. It becomes habitual. Like if I'm used to washing my hands when I leave out the bathroom, it becomes uncomfortable. I might leave out the bathroom and sit down for maybe a couple of minutes, but after a while it will agitate me because I feel like my hands are dirty, because I have accustomed to doing things. And I believe that in some way our traditions of dealing with things, we are missing the real children of God, because our children have picked up bad habits, bad ways, bad traditions, and these ways have been somewhat acceptable, or we have become subservient to them, and haven't really uh, uh how can I put it? I can't say haven't really. I would probably say we haven't we haven't been able to correct it by reprogramming ourselves to do things differently. So the whole purpose of this was just to tell you about be careful, because a lot of times we think something isn't for God and it really is, because of the language in which it's being used or the way it's being said. You know, a rebuke is still a rebuke no matter how you say it.